Welcome back to the Trade Hacker Mindset Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about trading and Clash Royale.
Trading the markets can be difficult to master and seemingly just out of reach. Professional traders have a secret. Trading requires total mental and emotional control. It requires the Trade Hacker Mindset.
All right, so let's talk about the similarities between trading and Clash Royale. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't know what I'm talking about either if I didn't have a couple of teenage boys who like to play video games on their phones. So I'm not a big video game guy. I mean, I was when I was younger, but I just found basically after I graduated from college that it's such a huge time suck, right? It just burns so much time that could be used on other more productive things. And so I try to avoid video games. But one of my sons introduced me to a game that him and his buddies like to play. It's called Clash Royale. And he got me to put it on my phone because he wanted to show it to me. He wanted me to play it with him. And so I did. And now I've been playing it for the last couple months, way too often, and I think I'm going to have to delete it off my phone because it's very addictive. But my point is, and how it relates to trading, is there are a ton of similarities. So if you have kids or if you play this game, you'll know what I'm talking about. But essentially, and let me try to set the stage of what it is for those who are not familiar. I'll try to do as good a job as I can here. But basically, you get a collection. You have a deck. They call it a deck of cards, basically. You have a deck of different mythical creatures. Anything from fire-breathing dragons to wizards and witches and skeleton armies and all kinds of crazy creatures, and essentially you're in a battle, and you're playing another person, and each person has 3 castles or 3 towers that you're trying to protect. And so when you're looking at the game, at the top is your opponent's 3 towers, at the bottom is your 3 towers, and so essentially what you're doing is you're playing your creatures, your cards that represent one of the creatures, in an attempt to go destroy their towers. Okay, so it's on a time limit. So I think it's a 3-minute time limit for the battle, and if you destroy one of their towers at the end of the 3 minutes and they haven't destroyed any of yours, you win. Or if you've each destroyed one tower of each other's, then you go into sudden death overtime. So the next tower that goes down is the winner. So the game is it's very strategic, right? So there's, I don't know, several dozen different of these mythical creatures that you can choose from to put on your deck so that you can play within the battles. And so you want to choose those, and each player, each mythical creature has a certain skill, right? And some can get destroyed or killed very easily. Some are very, harder to kill. Some are more offensive, so they're good for attacking the towers, and some are more for defense, right? They're better for when they're trying to attack your tower, you are defending your castle. And so you're trying to build a deck of creatures that are both a good combination of attacking and defending. They also have a certain amount of energy or power. So, like I said, some are easier to kill than others, and some are harder. And then you also want to be able to play the specific card or the specific creature in relation to what your opponent is doing, right? So if they are attacking, you're going to need to be playing your defense cards and placing them strategically on the battlefield so that they don't get to your castle, and so you can destroy them. And then and so it's a very strategic game of when to play offense and when to play defense. If you just go in there, balls to the wall, offense, attack, they're going to easily be able to destroy your cards. And the other thing I didn't mention is you have a certain amount of it's called elixir in the game. And so each card has a number value of elixir. So you can only play up to 10 elixir or energy at a time. And so you may have one card that's a 3 and one card that's a 4, so that's 7. And then you play another 3. So you can only play 10 points at a time, and each card is assigned a point. Right? So if you're just attacking, and you're using up all your bullets, all your elixir, then you can simply just play defense, and wait for them to run out, and then you attack. So you destroy their attackers, and then you're pushing forward to destroy their tower because they have no line of defense left because they used up all their bullets. They've used up all their energy. Okay, so the similarities to trading are there's actually a lot, right? One, in trading, you have to know when to be aggressive and when to be defensive, right? You need to know when to put more exposure at risk and when to really defend your capital, when to really protect that capital and just sit back and let the market do its thing where you don't feel like it's a favorable environment to put your chips on the table, right? So it's a very similar thing where you are always managing risk and deciding when to press and when to pull back, when to press and when to pull back. And it's a constant game of and that's why it's so mentally challenging, because you go into trading one day and it's a good day to be really offensive, to really put your chips on the table, to really push exposure and press your capital into the markets, right? But if you try to do that every day, you're going to get killed, right? So, and that's a mistake that a lot of traders make, where they'll think if it works today, it'll work again tomorrow, or they made so much money today doing it this way that they do it again and they give it all back, right? So it's a constant battle of understanding when is it time to press and when is it time to defend and protect. And the other aspect of the game as it relates to trading is knowing when to play the right cards, right? If I have a fire-breathing dragon coming at me, for example, I don't really want to play my skeleton army because they'll just blow a ball of fire and my little skeleton army will be gone, right? I want to play something that counteracts that fire-breathing dragon to the best of the ability, right? And so with trading, it's a very similar thing, right? We don't want to, if the market's going crazy, is that the best time to sell a delta neutral iron condor? Probably not, right? Or there are specific times when selling premium and selling delta neutral strategies so that price sits there in a range and you collect that premium makes sense. There are other times where if the market is very calm, if the ranges are very narrow, and you're trying to take trades that benefit from volatility, well, that's not going to work either, right? So you have to figure out which strategy to play when. Just like in the game, you have to figure out which card to play at what time to both attack and counter your opponent, right? So our opponent is the market. And so we're trying to balance that offense and defense against the market. And that's why it's important to have a portfolio of strategies that we can deploy at the right time, right? There are very specific times that it makes sense to trade calendar spreads. There are other times where it's a terrible time to trade calendar spreads. There's a good time to sell 0 DTE premium. There's a terrible time to sell 0 DTE premium, right? There's a time to trade directionally. There's a time to not trade directionally. So there are all these different components and environments in the market, and our job is to determine what environment we are in right now and which type of strategy will give us an edge. And sometimes the only edge that we have is to stay out. The only edge that we have is to protect our castle, to protect our capital, and not put any risk on at all. You know, sometimes it's okay to just sit back and let our energy build, let our elixir build up before we put our chips back into the battlefield. Because that's what it is. It's literally a battlefield. Now, you know, some of you listening might be successful traders that only trade one strategy, and that's fine too. That certainly is not me. But some people, because of their personality, because of their discipline, because of whatever, they have found it's a better fit to have one very decisive strategy, and they only trade that at a time when the market environment presents that edge to them for that one specific strategy. And so they will wait and wait and wait and wait and do nothing and be patient until that one environment presents itself, and then they'll put their chips on the table, right? Then they'll attack with their cards. And so that's certainly a very, I know a lot of successful traders that do it that way. For me, I would rather have a portfolio of strategies and be able to find the different market environments and take the trades, take some exposure, take some risk at the time when I think that specific strategy or set of strategies has an edge. Okay, so it's a couple different ways of thinking about it. Both can work, and one of the key components is to figure out what works best for you, right? And just like in the game, like my son, he has his favorite creatures that he uses in his deck, and that works really well for him. If I took his deck and tried to go into battle, it would not work the same. Like, I tried it. I tried to copy his deck. I tried to go in and use the same, cards that he was using, where he's very successful. He's a lot better at the game than me, by the way. And he can do really well. It didn't really work as well for me because maybe I wasn't as familiar with the cards and how they worked and how they countered different, other cards. And maybe if I kept doing it, I would get used to it. But doesn't that kind of sound like trading as well? Like, you can't just copy somebody else's trade and start trading it and think that you're going to have the same success as they did, right? They've put in more reps. They've gotten to understand the nuances, and there are a lot of nuances in trading that can make a big difference in whether you win or lose. And so taking those nuances and understanding those and playing them to your advantage to a point where you're able to almost create an edge yourself because of the way that you play those specific strategies becomes an edge in and itself, right? So it's not just the strategy, it's all the little things that you do and the way you perceive the market and the way you manage and tweak and do all the things with that strategy that sometimes can make a big difference. You know, you've probably heard me say this over and over and over, right? I could give 100 traders the same exact strategy and we would have 100 different results. We'd have vastly different results because everybody does things a little bit different. Some people are going to take profits quicker. Some people are going to cut losers quicker. Some people are going to adjust the trade. Some people are just going to close the trade if it goes against them. You know, there are so many different little variations, and then there are so many different perceptions of what's going on in the market that everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. And so it's, it all comes back to, what this whole podcast is about, which is the mental side of trading. It's you versus you. It's you versus you. It's you controlling your emotions. It's you controlling your discipline. It's you playing the right cards at the right time. It's you knowing when to defend your castle and when to attack. It's you knowing when to sit out. Sometimes in the game, you come up against opponents where they have just a lot better players, a lot better creatures than you do because they've either spent money on them or they've been playing longer and they've generated these additional, characters, and you don't have anything that can defend them. And so understanding that, sometimes you just got to take the loss and move on. Sometimes it's just not your day. If you are, in a funk where you're just continuing to lose and you just keep doing the same thing over and over day after day, and you continue to lose, sometimes you need to step back and take a break. Sometimes when I'm playing the game, I'll lose 5 in a row, and I'm just like, I'm not in sync right now. I don't have it, right? I don't have it right now, and so I've just got to put it down and come back and do it another day, right? And so the same thing happens in trading. You have to know when you're just not in sync with the market, or something's going on in the market. There's a shift in what's going on in the market, and sometimes you have to just step back and let that play out, get in the flow of what's going on, and then you can get back in and get back in sync with the market, both mentally and overall, just understanding how the market's moving and what kind of environment that we're in. All right, so that's all I've got for you on the Clash Royale front. For those of you who have played it, hopefully you'll be able to relate. For those of you who have not played it, I apologize. Whatever you do not go download it on your phone. It's highly addictive. I highly encourage you to stay away from it. And so if you can't relate, just skip this podcast and do not download the game. All right, until next time, everyone. Talk to you soon.